Contemporary humans are predisposed to binary thinking, including with respect to human sex and gender. Such binary thinking stands in stark contrast to the fact that 1. We recognize many different sexes in non-human species, including 36,000 sexes of fungus. 2. Many indigenous peoples acknowledge more than 2 genders in Homo sapiens. And 3. There is no linear relationship between sexual dimorphism and sexual reproduction. For example, male seahorses, pipefish, and hares get pregnant. Many species are male and female simultaneously or sequentially. Many types of fish change back and forth depending upon environmental conditions, as pointed out in Martine Rothblatt's 1995 book, The Appetite of Sex. The Red Pill or the Blue Pill, Transcending Binary Thinking. That was published January 6, 2015 in the peer-reviewed Journal of Social Work Education, as written by editor Susan P. Robbins. From the article comes these lines, quote, "Acceptance of and reliance on binary opposites not only creates boundaries between groups of people, it also posits that one group is superior to the other. Not surprisingly, this easily can lead to prejudice, discrimination, and oppressive policies and practices toward the less favored group. Us, them, black, white, gay, straight, male, female, oppressed, oppressor, mentally ill, normal, and able-bodied, disabled provide some concrete examples of binary opposites that have permeated our thinking and research as we attempt to classify individuals and groups of people." End quote. This paper reviews the abundant literature on this topic through 2014. Nearly 3 years later, Transcending Polarization, Beyond Binary Thinking by Wood and Petriglieri was published on December 28, 2017 in the peer-reviewed Transactional Analysis Journal. From the abstract comes this information. Quote, "Human life is an emotional roller coaster, and when confronting emotionally charged events, individuals, groups, and larger collectivities instinctively frame their predicaments in a binary way, as a polarity encompassing a dimension of choice with 2 mutually exclusive alternatives. Events are thus construed as dilemmas to be resolved in favor of one alternative or the other." End quote. One or the other. That's the way we see it. That's the way it has to be. Or, not and. It seems inclusivity is unacceptable to our customary way of thinking. Considering this mentality, it's small wonder we hover on the brink of extinction. In contrast to terms used by the dominant culture, Two-Spirit is a term used by some indigenous people to refer to a person who identifies as having both a masculine and a feminine spirit, and to describe their sexual, gender, and/or spiritual identity. Two-Spirit is not an insulting term, and it is often used to exalt a person. As an umbrella term, it may encompass same-sex attraction and a wide variety of gender variants, including people who might be described in Western culture as gay, lesbian, bisexual, transsexual, transgender, genderqueer, cross-dressers, or have multiple gender identities. Two-Spirit can also include relationships that could be considered polyamorous. The creation of the term Two-Spirit dates to Elder Myra Laramie, who proposed its use during the 3rd Annual Intertribal Native American First Nations Gay and Lesbian American Conference held in Winnipeg, Canada in 1990. In contrast to this respectful indigenous approach, I have often pointed out in this space that we are inclined to one correct way. For example, we are often told that there is one correct way to live. It's called civilization, although it's not at all civil. This mentality indicates that any other way of living is wrong. Furthermore, we typically acknowledge only one other way, that of indigenous peoples, despite the fact that lumping all indigenous peoples into one group is as egregious as calling every mammal a skunk. This propensity for othering is insulting and narrow-minded. As political figures know, it facilitates fragmentation. As one result, it normalizes atrocities. Once a group of people is painted as the other, genocide is easy to accept. It works with non-human species, too. Skunks come to mind. According to a pioneering study conducted by the UCLA Williams Institute as part of the UCLA College of Law, 1.2 million people in the United States identify as non-binary. Of course, this attribute is controlled by genetics. Of course, we have the same amount of control over these genetic factors as we do over our race and the color of our eyes. None. Many people do not understand gender fluidity or act as if it does not exist. I'll offer a brief explanation and encourage you to conduct additional research on your own. As reported by Lisa M. Diamond in her peer-reviewed paper titled Gender Fluidity and Non-Binary Gender Identities Among Children and Adolescents, published in Child Development Perspectives on April 27, 2020, quote, non-binary youth may identify as both male and female or neither male nor female, end quote. Such self-identification changes from moment to moment, thus gender fluidity. In addition to the obvious similarities to racism and misogyny, the notion of contrasting binary people, sometimes called heteronormative, with non-binary people raises the question, does it serve individuals or society to differentiate between binary and non-binary people? Does doing so create the same either-or perspective that accentuates othering, as with racism and misogyny? Obviously, it does. Wisdom is one product that results from the perspective of thinking differently. Albert Einstein thought differently from most of us. So, too, did many great artists and scientists. It is time we eliminated either-or thinking, which hampers inclusivity in many ways. For example, I turn to American poet Walt Whitman. Section 51 of his poem Song of Myself includes these 3 lines. Do I contradict myself? Very well then, I contradict myself. I am large. I contain multitudes. This poem has inspired many of us. It inspired Bob Dylan's song, I Contain Multitudes, released on April 17, 2020 through Columbia Records. Need I point out that Whitman was gay, as indicated in his love letters back and forth with Confederate Peter Doyle, who Whitman met in 1865? Apparently Bob Dylan didn't discriminate against Whitman for not being heteronormative. My point, and I do have one, is that today's humans are predisposed to binary thinking, including with respect to human sex and gender. Such binary thinking stands in sharp contrast to our broad-minded perspective on other factors. In addition, such binary thinking excludes others and therefore serves as among the many examples of othering. You might be thinking, so what? The problem is that many people have similar so what thoughts with respect to race. Are you among that group of people? Would you admit as much in public? It might be difficult to acknowledge a friend or family member as non-binary. Perhaps you spent many years calling somebody she and her because they were born with female genitalia. That they identify as gender fluid is only your problem if you want to demonstrate respect for this human being. If this is the case, then some practice might be in order. The practice of exercise helps with yoga. It also helps with respecting people. Thanks for watching, liking, and subscribing to the channel. If you subscribe, please click the bell so you'll be notified about future videos. Feel free to share this video and become a member of this channel for additional perks at as little as 99 cents per month. Mostly though, thanks for watching.